Guys, it's Friday. That means it's all football Friday. We're not going to talk about the Phillies disaster. We're not going to talk about Nick Nurse and the Sixers. We're not going to talk NBA Finals. We're going to talk football. We're going to talk Eagles. We're going to talk whatever you want to. We also have a special guest joining us shortly here on Trending in the AM, and it starts in 30 seconds. And a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM right here on Philadelphia Sports Network. We're live, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, you know the drill. Like, share, retweet, follow on all social media platforms. And we're not even going to waste any time. I'm going to bring my guest in here. He just joined the green room there, so we're going to put him right up on the screen right here. He's been on the show before. Great guy to talk football with on an all-football Friday. Coach Dale Carlson. Good morning, Dale. How you doing?
I'm good, Phil. How are you this morning?
I'm doing fantastic, and I'm glad I got to get you on, and I'm doing this thing this summer because in the summer when you host a sports show every single day, it gets kind of boring. You're a Chicago Cubs fan. How much can you complain about the Chicago Cubs? How much can you complain about the Phillies? So I've anointed Fridays, all football Fridays, where we're going to ignore all that negativity of the other sports and just focus on football.
Hey, there's nothing wrong. I'm always up to talk football, and it's great to have a football Friday going on. That's for sure.
All right, well, let's dive right into it. I kind of gave you the idea of what I wanted to start today's show off with. Obviously, when a football team on any level, and you've coached all different levels of football, college, pro teams, all different kinds of things, when you have success, your team's going to get poached. Players, coaches, and whatnot. And obviously, with the Eagles' success last year, making it to the Super Bowl, being ever so close, their offensive coordinator, their offense and defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon, Shane Steichen, got head coaching opportunities elsewhere. So the Eagles had this, void to fill, and the Eagles went out, they promoted from within Brian Johnson. They went out and got actually a Chicago Bears guy, Sean Desai, to be their defensive coordinator. Before we get into the specifics of each guy and their roles taking over, what's it like as a team with success, trying to carry on that success with new voices having to fill those voids of whether you love them or not? Gannon and Steichen did do pretty well, in their roles last year.
Yeah, well, it's like you said, it's just the nature of the business. When you have a lot of success, you're going to see, coordinators get chances to go on at other spots. You're going to see, so as you said, get poached, get better content, whatever, or management, when you look at the player side, just decides, you know what, I know we've had success. I know these guys have been integral. Maybe we don't want to pay these guys what they want or what they think they want. And so we're going to move on. I mean, I know Bill Belichick probably isn't the most popular guy out there, but that's what he's done for a lot of years in New England. Now, granted, the results haven't been as good lately, but, you look at that, 2002 to, 2018 teams did move guys out before they were done, but he felt like it was time to go. But that's just the nature of the business, and I think the biggest thing is Nick Sirianni obviously is there. He's the head coach. He sets the tone. Changes. Defensively, obviously that's going to be a little bit different thing with a new defensive coordinator coming in, but nature of the business.
Is it harder to, again, a team that's had all this success that wants to continue it? Is it harder for the defensive coordinator to take over that role or the offensive coordinator to take over a role in this situation?
Well, I think right now, just looking at where the Eagles are, it's for the defensive coordinator spot, because he's going to bring his own stuff, his own terminology, those sorts of things in. I mean, I don't think Nick Sirianni hired Sean Desai to run the same defense that they were running. I mean, I think he knew that there was going to be some changes. And my guess is in the interview process, he felt pretty comfortable, with all of that. So I think probably from that standpoint, it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge on the defensive side. Offensively, it should be pretty seamless. I mean, they're not going to change a whole lot. They're going to tweak, which you always do, but I doubt there's going to be a whole lot of wholesale changes on offense.
Okay, so but here's a question then, because you just brought up. I was going to go defense, but now you brought into the offense there. Brian Johnson, he was the quarterback coach last year of the Eagles. He's actually been around the block before. He actually had a relationship with Jalen Hurts back in high school, so there is a connection there. But Brian Johnson's never been in an offensive coordinator role. He's never been in a play calling position before. Is there something that Brian Johnson's got to do to set the tone early? That because Nick Sirianni doesn't call the plays, his offensive coordinator calls the plays for him, and has been since I think like the third or fourth week of his first year as the head coach. So is there something that Brian Johnson can do, or since he was just promoted from within, is there already probably some built-in confidence there? He's never done this before, and I think going into this next season for the Eagles, the biggest concern are these two new coordinators, and specifically Brian Johnson, in a role he's never even remotely sniffed before.
Yeah, well, Brian Johnson has been there for the last 3 years. He was obviously integral in the development of Jalen Hurts as a quarterback, and Brian Johnson was having some input into what they were doing. Even though Nick Sirianni is the head coach, even though the offensive coordinator is the guy that's ultimately making decisions, my guess would be that there was a lot of team decision making going on when they were putting game plans together, when they were deciding what to do. Brian Johnson. You look at his background, though, maybe he hasn't been an NFL coordinator, but I mean, he coordinated one of the best offenses in the country at Florida in the SEC. Now, that's not the NFL, but that's still pretty darn good football. And Brian Johnson, at one point, what was he, 24 when he got his first offensive coordinator's job at Utah? Now, Utah's not winning national championships, but Utah is very, very competitive and has won a lot of football games over the years. So I would say that Brian Johnson's got some experience. It might not be the NFL experience, but yet for the last 3 years, he was on the headset. He was talking to Jalen Hurts. He was talking to Nick Sirianni. I mean, he's been in those conversations. And so he's going to know that offense, inside and out.
Yeah, I think you bring up that Florida job there. At least he was able to get quite a bit out of Kyle Trask, who I'm sure you've seen the videos of him from, training camp the other day, or the OTAs the other day in Tampa, and how not so good he looks. But, so being able to get that much out of Kyle Trask, I guess that is a positive. I'm just concerned about setting the tone early and making sure that the players know that everything's going to change, but nothing is going to change, that there's still going to be success, and we're all on the same page here.
And again, I think he's been there before. He knows all those players. He's interacted with everybody. I mean, I know he's a quarterback's coach, but I guarantee you he had interactions with everybody else, with all the other players. And again, Nick Sirianni credit. He promoted from within because he saw a guy that could do the job in his opinion. And so you got to trust what his instinct says. And I mean, Sirianni's been pretty good for Philadelphia since he's got there. So I would be surprised if there's going to be a lot of changes. And here's the other thing is, Brian Johnson, first time offensive coordinator, he's got a great offensive mind in his boss. So if he's got issues, if something's going on, there's going to be great interaction, I'm sure, between Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson to make sure that they're on the right track. And Sirianni may have given up the play calling stuff, but when you're an offensive coach, offensive minded head coach, you're still putting your fingers in it. There's no doubt. So I think that if I was an Eagles, to be looking at the defensive side.
You brought up the promote from within with Brian Johnson. I did write down one little side note here, because Brian Johnson obviously promoted from within. And honestly speaking, like once we lost Shane Steichen, everybody kind of knew Brian Johnson was going to step into that role. In a situation where the Eagles, they've just played in the Super Bowl, they're trying to keep that momentum going. Do you think it's better to promote from within? Sean Desai was brought from the outside on the defensive side, offensive side promoted from within. What would you think? It's got to be easier for the transition to promote from within, right?
Well, especially on offense. I mean, you've got potentially a guy who could end up. I know I don't want to jinx anything for you Philadelphia Eagles fans, but I mean, Jalen Hurts could be a great him, who's helped in the development, and now he's going to be the one that's going to call the plays. And I don't think that transition, I think, should have been that way. Why would you bring somebody in from the outside that doesn't know the terminology, doesn't know the players as well, doesn't know the other assistant coaches as well? You want to keep that offensive side of things, pretty seamless, because you potentially have a great one in Jalen Hurts. So, yeah, I mean, it just makes total sense to do that. And I think, that's kind of and again, I'll bring back the Patriots thing. How many times you went from Charlie Weiss to Bill O'Brien to Josh McDaniel, back to Bill O'Brien, back to Josh McDaniel. And did things ever change? No, because they had the one constant. They had the quarterback, in Tom Brady and a great head football coach. And I think Nick Sirianni is going to be, and I think they've got the constant in the quarterback with Jalen Hurts.
All right, we'll get back to the offense and Jalen Hurts in a second, because I do want to get into Sean Desai a little bit. Obviously, you're a Chicago fan. You're a Bears fan. He spent some time, pretty much a big bulk of his career as an assistant coach, a safeties coach, 1 year as a defensive coordinator there in Chicago back in 2021. Sean Desai was definitely a hot candidate in the defensive coordinator circles this coaching cycle, and the Eagles were able to bring him in. What do you know about Sean Desai? I mean, from what we're hearing, he's not what the Eagles fans want in the defensive coordinator, blitz happy, aggressive guy. That's not what the papers are saying about him. What do you know about Sean Desai and his background?
Sean Desai's got a very interesting background. The way that he rose up the ranks in Chicago from an intern, a guy, doing quality control, and then to the safeties coach, and then the defensive coordinator, and obviously, he was a hot commodity when the changes were made, in Chicago. He went to Seattle, and now he's with Philadelphia. But here's the thing about Sean Desai. You got to think about Vic Fangio. He worked under Vic Fangio, and Vic Fangio may not have done well in Denver, but he's one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL, period, over the last, 15 years, 20 years. So he's got great chops there from working with Fangio. Then he's with Pete Carroll, and Pete Carroll is one of in the history of the NFL. Well, whether you like him as a head coach, whether you don't, doesn't matter. The guy knows defensive football, and what a great spot for Desai to learn again. And then you look at the 1 year in that dumpster fire that was the 21 Chicago Bears. They were fourth in the league in sacks. Yeah, they didn't blitz a lot, and they had a great pass rusher in Robert Quinn, but they were fourth in the league in sacks. But here's the other stat that I think is even more important, is they were first in sacks per pass attempt. So when you think about that, they were the number one team in sacks per pass attempt with not a great football team. So, yeah, he may not be blitz happy, and he may not be, bringing pressure, every down. But I think, with, Vic Fangio and Pete Carroll, learning the nuances of playing one high with man underneath, or playing, that cover two stuff, and getting pressure. I think, you better not judge him just yet. And as you said, I mean, he was a hot commodity. He was a hot commodity when he left the Bears, and he settled for what he did. But I think he's got a chance to be again a good one.
It's funny. Everybody just assumes that, again, the Eagles didn't have a blitz happy defense under Jonathan Gannon, and yet they have 70 sacks last year. It was like one of the biggest, second to, I think it was the Bears. They almost broke the Bears record for most sacks in a season. Yes. Everybody's just so stuck in the 90s with the Eagles and Jim Johnson and, his, super aggressive defense, that it's now been 23 years and they still can't, get over that. They still want that. But in this day and age, in this NFL and the style of athlete that's playing defense, you don't need to be a blitz happy team to still get after the quarterback and be successful.
No, you've got to have those good pass rushers. And here's the other thing too, not even just besides the blitz happy stuff, but when you start bringing a lot of pressure and you have these athletic quarterbacks all of a sudden breaking in the pocket, and you're playing man defense behind it, and you don't get home, and that guy takes off. I mean, I look at what teams do when they tried to blitz Jalen Hurts. I mean, if he breaks the pocket, he's gone for 30, 40 yards, maybe a touchdown. So, the days of bringing, tremendous pressure it's going to depend on who's playing quarterback and who you're playing against. But the nature of the NFL game today is the athletic quarterback, and I don't think that.
Yeah, I mean, Johnny's commenting right here in the comment section. You blitz Patrick Mahomes, you're going to get beat every single time because not only are the quarterbacks so athletic now, they're smarter. They got more information in front of them, before a game, in the middle of a game. They're not just looking at a flip book of pictures anymore. They've got everything there. The smart athletic quarterback nowadays, you got to be able to do more than just blitz 7 guys at them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you just look at, as you said, the trends of the game, and whether it's Mahomes, whether it's Hurts, whether I'm hoping it's Justin Fields in Chicago. You just look at the types of quarterbacks that are out there, and you can't just blitz people. You've got to be able to find a way to get home with either maybe with some sort of fire blitz where you're playing zone behind it, so at least you're not running everybody off, and you have an opportunity if the quarterback breaks the pocket to at least hold them to, I don't want to say a minimal game, but not let them rip off 40 yards down the field.
You mentioned Justin Fields, and I'm assuming you're hoping Justin Fields takes some sort of a leap like Jalen Hurts did. I mean, you've been coaching football for probably about 40 years now. You've known football probably since you were, a wee little Dale, running around. Have you ever seen a quarterback take the leap that Jalen Hurts took from 2021 into 2022? Because to me, I still cannot find a quarterback that went from a middle-level guy that might have a little potential to literally being on the cusp of winning an MVP and a Super Bowl in one season. I mean, it was, in my opinion, unheard of.
Well, and you're right, and it was a tremendous job by Jalen Hurts for being that guy that's going to work on getting better and making his game better and understanding what he wants to do, and also by the coaching staff that were able to communicate, teach, use his skill set in the proper manner. So I think it's a combination of both. But I mean, really, if you think about somebody that's taken, that type of a leap to do those sorts of things that quickly, to go from, okay, maybe he can start for us, to, okay, yeah, we got into the playoffs. Now all of a sudden, this guy may be one of the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the NFL we've got right here, and we're talking, winning Super Bowls, not just one, but maybe a few, maybe a Brady-esque Patriots type of thing. Jalen Hurts. So, I mean, it was tremendous. Yeah. Can I think of somebody that made, that sort of jump, that quickly? I mean, you've seen guys develop over the years, but, what a tremendous transformation, from Hurts. I mean, and you could see it, 2 seasons ago when they got in the playoffs, and you started to see some of those things. And then you give them that offseason, another training camp, and again, another year like that under the system with Sirianni and his coaches. And, like I said, I think the sky's the limit for him. I mean, if he can stay healthy, I think he could be one of the great ones.
Yeah, I mean, literally before last season, even though we went to the Super Bowl last year, before the season, there was still talk that the Eagles wanted to trade for Russell Wilson, because there was that little, even after going to the playoffs that first year and losing to Tampa in the wild card, there still was so much doubt in Philadelphia on Jalen Hurts that Russell Wilson was like the top name to be brought in here. And to go from not even being sure if you're the guy for 1 year, let alone the future, to being the guy that got, at the time, the biggest contract in NFL history, that's a pretty big leap. Does that create added pressure? I know with the Phillies, I don't know about the Cubs. The Phillies give out all these big contracts, and then the guys tend to struggle in baseball that first year of getting the big contract. Is there ever a fear of a player like Jalen Hurts with his work ethic that he might struggle under the immense pressure now that's put on his shoulders?
I doubt it. I mean, you're looking at a guy who has taken, every opportunity that he's had and has produced, whether it was in college, whether it's now what he's done in the NFL. And, to some aspects, if I'm Jalen Hurts and the Eagles want to type of contract, I'm going to say thank you. And I think, from what I've read, I don't know the man personally, but it seems to me he's driven to want to be the best. And again, he is not Tom Brady yet. Whatever you think of Tom Brady, you can't discount the record. Brady made all sorts of dollars, but yet he was so driven to be the best. And that's what it seems to be. What I've read and seen about Jalen Hurts, that he's just driven to be the best. Now, the other flip side of that is the other 10 guys that are out there have to step up and do their jobs as well. And right, it's always on the quarterback, and sometimes rightly so, sometimes, wrongly so. But yeah, Hurts is going to have to step up and show that he's worth the money, but I got a feeling he will.
So just say you're Coach Nick Sirianni and this team, because let's be honest, going to the Super Bowl last year was exceeding expectations. That jump from Jalen Hurts, that big of a jump, was exceeding expectations. Yesterday was the first day of offseason OTAs, which, this just goes to show the culture. Literally every Eagle is at the voluntary workouts, yesterday. Everybody showed up. It's not like any of the veterans took the first, practice off or anything like that. If you're Nick Sirianni and you're sitting down with your team for the first time this offseason, and you just exceeded expectations, what are you telling them to make sure that not just Jalen Hurts, but every single one of the 53, 90 or whatever it is in off season are hungry and want to keep fighting? Because we didn't win the Super Bowl. We got to the Super Bowl. We beat those expectations. But, there is that possibility that some players are not content, but let off a little bit because, look, they smell their own stuff, and we got there last year. So, what would you say to the team as your first speech to this team?
What first thing I would say to it is, that's great. I hope you enjoyed, some, but that's over, and so we're starting fresh. It's 0-0. You look at the division. I mean, I think, it doesn't matter what you think of Washington or Dallas or New York. Those guys got better. They brought in some better players. We're going to have to step our game up another level. The easiest thing is to climb to the top. The hardest thing is to stay there. And so you've got to be willing to reach deep down and find a little more, because we got the target on our backs now. Everybody's going to be coming for us. Not that they weren't at the end of the season, but all the hype, you're in the Super Bowl, yada, 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 we're the favorites to go back, all those things. That's going to be there. So one, it's a new season, 0-0. We get that in your mind. Two, get rid of all the back. That's over. We're going to start again. We've got a new season. Three, I'm going to grab those leaders, I'm going to grab those leaders, those however many he's got, 5, 8, 10, whatever. And, you guys got to make sure that nobody is living off their laurels. And I got to believe that Kelsey's sitting in there and he's getting down towards the end of his playing time, probably. I know he decided to come back to play again this year. Why? Because he thinks they can win the Super Bowl. That's why he came back. So he's going to sit there and say, you know what, if somebody's going to, all of a sudden be taking things for granted, not practicing hard, not doing the things they're supposed to do, I'm going to be all over them. And I'm sure there's going to be 8 or 9 other guys that Sirianni's got that are going to do the same things. And, to me, again, and I bring up the Patriots again, but, that's what Teddy Bruschi, that's what those guys did in New England. If somebody wasn't towing the line, they either got him to toe the line or they went to Bill, and Bill me is probably what's going to happen, because it sure seems to me there's a great leadership core in Philadelphia on that team. And I think from that standpoint, as a fan, you got to be real happy that these guys are going to do whatever they have to do to get all 50, plus players in line to be on the same page and to be focused and to go forward. Now, is that going to guarantee anything? Absolutely not. But you got to have that attitude going into it.
We got a couple questions here in the comments section about the Eagles running back room. I don't want to ask specifics. I know you don't know specifics about every single player, but obviously last year Miles Sanders was the Eagles' leading running back. He was the main guy, rushed for 1,300 yards, had 11 touchdowns. They've decided to go in a different direction this year. He was a free agent. They brought in off-injured Rashad Penny from Seattle, off-injured DeAndre Swift from Detroit. and they've got kind of like a piece together running back by committee, and you're an offensive minded coach. Do you think in today's football game, NFL, college, whatever, is it smarter to go with a lead guy that's going to be your bulk guy, the Dalvin Cooks of the world, the Derrick Henrys of the world, or is it smarter as a team to build 3 or 4 running backs that can all carry the ball 10, 12 times, but then if one gets injured, can pick up the pace? Like, where would your offensive philosophy go with the running back room? Because, again, we're getting a bunch of comments in the section on running back.
Yeah, I mean, how many Derrick Henrys are there out there? I mean, I think that's the other thing you have to look at. And again, if I'm the general manager, and I'm looking at contracts and stuff, and again, especially at running back, and let's face it, in today's day and game, or today's day and age, unless you have a super special back like a Derrick Henry, you're not going to pay a guy a ton of money. The Bears let Montgomery go, and I'll just reference that. And he's been, tremendous player for them the last few years. But I wouldn't have paid him the money Detroit paid him. That's right. So, yeah, they have a couple of guys that have been injured. Yeah, are they, again, that's where you kind of have to trust management. They're satisfied, they pass the physicals, that they're going to stay healthy. But if they're not carrying the ball 25 times a game, getting hit, 40 times a game, whatever it is, in pass protection and pass routes and all that stuff, you still have guys that are very productive. I think even though Penny was hurt, I think he averaged over 4 yards a carry last year. So,
five. I think he had the highest average per run for running backs with a certain amount of carries. So, yeah.
Yeah. So let's look at that. And so if we're going to play, 3 of them, rotate them in and out, the way the NFL is today, I don't think that's a bad thing unless you get that special guy, that maybe you want to pay to keep around. But if I'm looking at that, I'm saying, there's a great offensive line in front of them. The defense is going to have to account for Jalen Hurts, and that's going to open up a lot of space for any of those 3 running backs.
An interesting topic that we talked about on this show a lot last season, and we have this offseason because you bring up the offensive line, is the conversation. I kind of say it goes both ways. There's still some people that aren't sold on Jalen Hurts, and I don't know why anybody wouldn't be sold on Jalen Hurts at this point after what he did. A few people are still saying it's that great offensive line that makes Jalen Hurts better.
Yeah, I'm sorry, say that again. We kind of we froze up there a little bit.
Sorry. No, the offensive. There are still a few Eagles fans that think that Jalen Hurts is not as good as he appears because he's got this amazing offensive line that is leaving the lanes open for the running, giving him the protection. And I think that there's a conversation to be made that the offensive line can make a quarterback better, but the quarterback can also make the offensive line better, right?
You got to remember, football is a team game. I mean, it's 11 guys out there, and especially on offense, if you don't have 11 players on the same page most of the time, you've got issues. And that's saying that you're physically able to, to play with everybody and you're to match up with your opponents. But offensive football is about 11 guys going together. On defense, a guy or two can make a mistake and somebody can still go make a play to prevent a touchdown or whatever, and then you go to the next play. On offense, if somebody makes a mistake, you're looking at a turnover, you're looking at a big negative yardage play, you're looking at trying to have a hole to climb out of. And so, I think, does Jalen Hurts rely on those other 10 players? Well, of course he does. I mean, any great team does. I don't care whether you're Tom Brady, whether you're Russell Wilson, whether you're whoever, Patrick Mahomes. Is Mahomes a great player because of the guys around him? Well, absolutely. They're there to contribute and make him great. I mean, that's the nature of offensive football.
You mentioned, if you said something a few minutes ago, and I forget what the topic was, but you said if Jalen Hurts can stay healthy, he'll be great. Are you spending some time this offseason with your coordinator as the head coach being like, we've got to find a way. Jalen Hurts was rushing 14, 18 times a game. You don't want to take that element away from him because that's what makes him so dangerous. But he had like 700 or 800 rushing yards last year, like 10, 12 touchdowns. I forget the exact number. Are you trying to find a way to dial that back a little bit just so he's taking a few less hits so that he's not, he's going to miss a game or two every year, I think, in his career. That's why you get a good backup all the time. But are you trying to protect him a little bit more, or do you just you just got to roll with it because that's who he is and that's what makes him great.
You gotta let him play. And again, I think, and without having broken down, every one of those running plays, how many of those were scrambles on, pass protection breakdown or whatever that he was able to take off and go out. And I think really, if you look at most quarterback injuries, serious ones, they happen when somebody's standing in the pocket and he gets blindsided from behind, or somebody gets blocked down at his feet and takes him out because the field looking to throw. If he's out running someplace, he has a better chance to protect himself. And can somebody cheap shot him when he's trying to slide or whatever? Of course, those things can happen. And Hurts missed what, 1 game last year, 2 games?
Missed 2 games, yeah.
Yeah, because he took a shot. But I'd much rather have my quarterback getting hit running down the field where he's got a chance to see what's going on than standing in the pocket and getting lit up, someplace in there, or getting driven down backwards on his head. That's when I think most of the serious quarterback injuries happen. Now, because of the Lamar Jacksons and the Jalen Hurts and the Justin Fields and the Kyler Murrays and those guys that all run, do you see maybe an increase in some of those injuries down the field? Well, yes, because more of them are running down there. But the same breath, what got the Eagles to the Super Bowl? Jalen Hurts making plays when things broke down. Jalen Hurts getting a key first down on a zone replay in a clutch situation. I don't think you're going to dial that stuff down. I think you're just going to try to be smart in terms of when you call the design quarterback runs, but let him do what he does when things break down.
I want to ask you a funny question here, because there is something that came up this offseason. Was it the NFL, because you're talking about Jalen Hurts running, the NFL was trying to ban, teams were trying to ban what we've coined the tush push, where Jalen Hurts gets up under center, just pushes forward. He's got 3 guys pushing it. As an offensive-minded coach, and I think it's insane that one team figured out a way to get a first down every play, and the NFL thought about voting on banning that rule. How insane is it that was trying to be banned, or were you in favor of banning that rule?
No, absolutely not. And and the interesting thing is, and it's great, the tush push, and you've got a big quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Than everybody else and knock them off the ball too. So, to me, that was a stupid discussion that the NFL had, to go and ban that. I mean, that's just saying, well, we're going to ban quarterback runs now because Justin Fields had over 1,000 yards rushing as a quarterback. So we're not going to let him do that anymore. I mean, come on, the defensive coordinator, get lower than the offensive line, to try and stop that,
Yeah, that's they're always trying to change. I mean, they're trying to make the changes to special teams again this year to protect the players. That was not trying to protect players. That was trying to protect teams because they couldn't figure out how to stop it. To me, that's, well, you as a defense have to figure it out. And there was, I forget what game late in the season, a team had actually, it was like the first team to actually stop the tush push. So the next opportunity actually had a backup play design where it looked like the tush push was happening. Then he flung it out to a little, scat back who ran around for a big gain. So while the NFL couldn't figure it out, when the NFL did, Nick Sirianni and last year's coordinator Shane Steichen had a backup plan in place. So if they can have a backup plan, why can't the rest of the NFL find a backup plan to stop that play?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's that's just some owners being pissed off because they couldn't beat the Eagles. I mean, that's what that was all about, and they made their teams look pretty bad. I mean, that again, you think about it. What if they would have gone back some years ago when Dick LeBeau came up with the zone blitz and said, well, you can't zone blitz and you can't blitz and not play man coverage. I mean, come on, nobody had an answer for that for a lot of years either. So they'll figure it out. I mean, NFL always does. What offense does something, defense will adapt. Then when the defense adapts, the offense does something else. That's just the nature of football.
Yeah. All right. So I only got a few more minutes of your time. And I mean, we are talking Eagles mostly today, but I do want to get your opinion because I've got a pretty strong opinion about another thing that's happened in the NFL because I don't like it in the sense of the culture that it's changing. Now it's the New York Jets. And I liked Robert Saleh when he was hired by the Jets to be their, coach a few years ago. He was in contention with Nick Sirianni for the job in Philly. I liked it because I like defense actually more than offense. Sorry. Now the Jets have been trying to build a culture, and they've been building a strong defense. They've been, building up their offensive line over the last few years. They got a great young running back, and I know the Zach Wilson experiment hasn't worked out as their quarterback, but they've gone this offseason and just completely flipped the script, traded away everything, got Aaron Rodgers in there. Does that? I don't know what your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers. I mean, as a Bears fan, you've watched a lot of Aaron Rodgers football, I'm sure, over the years. At 38 years old, I think the Jets made a mistake by leveraging their future for maybe 1 or 2 good years with Aaron Rodgers. And I always talk about timing in sports. It's a bad time to do that because they still got to get past the Bills. They still got to get past the Dolphins. Like, there are still other teams in their division alone better than them, where it might not have been the best thing to do with their culture that they've been building, their philosophies, to go get a distraction. Even though he's a great quarterback, a distraction, and bring him in. What are your thoughts on that situation there?
Yeah, well, of course, I'm going to be a little bit prejudiced in my thoughts because I think Aaron Rodgers is a punk. But I don't understand it. I don't get why they decided to do that. And here's the thing is, I mean, Rodgers has had a lot of success. He's thrown for a lot of yards. They won a lot of games in Green Bay, but how many Super Bowls did they win? One a long time ago. How many playoff games have they won in the last few years? None. It's not like, again, I sound like a broken record, but it's not like Tampa taking a shot at Tom Brady. I mean, that was a little bit different deal because you got a guy who, how many rings does he have on his finger? And then he got another one down there. I mean, they had to do some paying. They had to do some things to get him. But, to me, I would wanted to take Aaron Rodgers, especially for what they had to pay for him. I don't get it. I really didn't. I don't know. Maybe it might work out for the Jets. Who knows? But you're right. I mean, they still got to beat the Bills, and the Bills are really good. The Dolphins, who knows? Are they going to figure it out? Do they have the quarterback? I mean, with Tua's injuries and all that, whatever. But, they still got to deal with that. And I'm sorry, I'm still a Bill Belichick fan. I mean, he may figure it out too, and so, I mean, they're going to have a hard time.
Johnny's saying that the Packers will never be over 500 again because they got rid of Aaron Rodgers. I don't know about that.
I'm hoping.
Johnny's on board with the Jets because Johnny's a guy, he's always in the comment section. He's a big Buffalo Bills fan. But I talk about this a lot, Dale, is that timing in all sports is important when you go all in. And not just the AFC East there with Buffalo and Miami. You still got Mahomes, Kansas City on top. You still got Joe Burrow and Bengals on top. Like, I don't know what the Jets are thinking about risking their future for 2 years. Like, my first bold prediction of this entire offseason has been the Jets will not win more than 6 games this year. Everyone calls me nuts, but I always get a couple of these bold predictions right. And I don't know. I just don't buy a guy that had to go on a dark retreat or whatever the hell it was, basically go into the woods and get high to decide whether he was even going to play football again. And that, to me, tells me that that's just going to be bad culture there in New York right from the get-go.
Yeah, and I mean, let's face it. Aaron Rodgers has not necessarily been the greatest leader in the world. I think the Packers had some success. Again, they didn't win playoff games and stuff. They still won the division. They still got there. But I think it was because of the strength of the players around him. And, I just have the feeling that Shanahan just went to management and said, I'm done with this guy. I've had it. So let's move on and let's figure it out from there. And so the Jets decided that and I don't see it happening. I'm kind of with you. I don't see it happening. And you're right. There's sometimes you do sacrifice. I mean, again, I'm a Cubs fan. 2016, they ended up winning the World Series because they mortgaged the house for Aldous Chapman from the Yankees. And maybe he didn't necessarily get what they needed to have done in the final game of the World Series, but they got there because they did that. And did they give up some good prospects? And did that maybe hurt them? Maybe, but they won a world championship doing that for the first time in however. So I think you have to pick your spots when to do it. I think the Jets picked a bad spot.
Yeah, I agree with you there. So anyway, we got to wrap it up with you because I know you got to roll. Again, this is Coach Dale Carlson, Dale Carlson 63 on Twitter. Follow him. I love having you on because you're just so kind and you give me your time and you got so much insight. What do you got going on this summer? You got anything happening, or you just going to enjoy that 3-day northern summer that you get up there?
Well, it's 90 degrees here in Indianapolis today, so it's summer's here. Major League Football is still talking about playing this summer, so we'll see what goes with that. There's actually a couple other things coming down the pike for next year. There's a group that's going to play called the International Football Association that's going to play 3 teams in Texas, 3 teams in Mexico. My good friend Hal Mummy's got one of the Mexico teams. So there may be an opportunity to go there. It's going to be, professional developmental type football. We'll see what happens with that. Otherwise, Phil, I'm going to be playing golf and enjoying the summer.
Got to work on that golf swing. I'm trying to get out this weekend, so I appreciate that. Coach Dale Carlson, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate your time this morning.
Hey, anytime, Phil, and I'll come on anytime and talk football with you for sure.
We'll get you back on again soon. Thank you very much, Dale.
All right.
Thanks. That was Coach Dale Carlson right there. If you guys don't know the guy, find him on Twitter. Find his bio, Pro Level Sports Agency. It's the talent agency that represents him. And the list of accomplishments. I didn't want to waste his time. We only had a limited time to go through all the different teams he's coached. Super smart guy, super gracious. It's about the 4th or 5th time I've had him on this show. With my previous network for the most part. I don't know if it came through on your end, guys, but on my end, it kind of got a little glitchy a few times. So hopefully you got the gist of what he, had to say there. But there, I was taking notes as he was talking, guys. And one thing stood out. I'm going to make a tweet about this later, too, to promote the show. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I know you're all watching. Make sure we're liking the video. A lot of people have been tuning in this morning, liking the video and stuff like that. We didn't really get to push that. We're only at 9 likes, but we've had like 18, 19 people watching throughout the show. You want to get to NBA? Now, I don't want to talk. It's all Football Friday, guys. We're trying to stay away from the NBA today. I could talk baseball, but I'm going to choose not. But Coach Dale Carlson said something that really stuck out to me. He said it's easier to climb to the top than stay on top. And when I asked him what would Nick Sirianni's message be to these guys, I thought he was going to say, well, you actually didn't accomplish anything. You got to the Super Bowl and you fell short. So isn't the goal to win a Super Bowl? I thought that's what he was going to say. But he said it's easier to climb to the top than stay on top. And I thought that really rang true. And we'll get into your running back conversation there, Johnny, in a second here. We still got about 15 minutes left in the show. I think that phrase, the rent's due every day. Like, I love all the cliche phrases, Judd. I love how, they fit on shirts and all, but that phrase right there, climb to the top, is easier than to stay on the top. That almost needs to be on a shirt. That needs to be a shirt with Dale Carlson's face on it because I love that phrase, because I think it's really important for this Eagles team not to rest on their laurels, what got them there. They didn't accomplish. The goal is to win the Super Bowl, not to get to the Super Bowl. And I really think that that's very important. One motive, in addition to being Eagles respecter, want to know the biggest threat to Bills, Eagles, Chiefs, and Bengals. The biggest threat to those 4 teams. Well, in the NFC, I guess the 49ers, kind of, sort of. They would be a threat, but that's about it. I think the NFC, I talk about timing all the time, Johnny, in all sports. The timing is perfect for the Eagles because really the NFC is weak. Bills, Chiefs, Bengals, maybe the Ravens if Lamar Jackson can stay healthy. There's a lot of Chargers fans that think Justin Herbert's the world. I don't. So maybe them. I don't know. Maybe there's still Denver fans that think there's something left in Russell Wilson. I don't. I think it's those 3 AFC teams, maybe the Ravens, and that's about it. Jacksonville, I think Jacksonville is going to be a sleeper this year as well. They played well last year. They got to the playoffs. Doug Peterson's obviously doing a lot to change the culture. Trevor Lawrence, everybody forgets how great Calvin Ridley was before he stopped playing football and then got suspended from football. Throwing Calvin Ridley on that offense that's already really good, Trevor Lawrence is going to have – I don't know. I haven't made any bets for this season. Trevor Lawrence is going to be my sleeper MVP pick possibly this year because I think Calvin Ridley, people are really sleeping on how good Calvin really is. This team built its foundations on climbing to the top. Well, they got to the top now. Now, how do they stay on the top? Yeah, did you ever play King of the Mountain, Eric, when you're a kid? You get to the top, and then you got to keep knocking people down because everybody wants your spot. You got the bullseye on your back. What does this Eagles team do? How do they talk themselves into realizing that they've got to fight off everybody that's trying to knock them down? Is the Eagles' offensive line still tops, 2 great wide receivers, a running back core? The Eagles will be great because of all those things, and they still do have the great offensive line. Dolphins and Ravens are dark horses. See, the Dolphins, maybe, depends on if Tua can stay healthy. And there's a difference between Tua staying healthy and Jalen Hurts staying healthy because Tua's got the over-aggressiveness. He can get banged up a lot, like just like Jalen Hurts because he runs and he's a mobile quarterback. But he's also got a massive concussion, thing hanging over his head. Like, every time he gets a hit, people are going to be worried about him. So the Dolphins, while I want to be hyped for them, I don't know if I can really get too hyped until I see what Tua looks like on the field in real meaningful games. I had purpose before people had opinions. I love it. It's a great phrase. There's so many great phrases. And Coach Dale Carlson, being 40-plus year coach, was able to give us another one. I love it. I can't wait to tweet it out later today for the people that don't watch this show. I wanted to see if you could get guests to say, Johnny, I've thought about it. Coach Dale Carlson's in his 60s now. I would say, Coach, do you know what mid means? And he'd be like, what? Middle of what? Like, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't know what mid actually means. Zero fear of the Dolphins. If I was the Jets, I would fear the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins will finish second in their division, but I don't think there'll be anybody that's super contending unless Tua stays healthy. Can't forget they got Tyreek Hill and they got Jalen Waddle. Seahawks will be better. I don't know. Like, I got to see if Geno Smith, it's not like Geno Smith was a rookie and just came out of nowhere like Jalen Hurts or a young kid. Geno Smith's 30-some years old. Like, is this the new Geno Smith, or was that like an aberration that season for him? I don't know. The track record says last year was a blip on the radar, not something that he could sustain. But Pete Carroll's a great coach. He has a great system and a great culture in Seattle. They still got DK Metcalf, who I thought they were going to trade at one point, but I thought they were going to trade him last year. They didn't. So maybe they do. They've made some improvements on their defense, maybe. Seattle still has to get through San Francisco. I think the Rams will be better if Sam Bradford, not Sam Bradford. What am I? Anyway, we'll move on from that. Dolphins figured it out. We'll find out about that. Dolphins fixed their O-line. I don't know. And if they didn't fix it well enough, Tua's going to be out with another concussion, and that's a problem. I emerged from the smoke of King of the Mountain. Yo, you are? Yeah. See, I had practice. My grandma had a little, well, when I was a kid, I thought it was a big hill in her yard. Now I drive by and it wasn't very big, that hill. But me and my brothers would practice King of the Hill in her house. And then I would be able to take that to the playground and whoop ass because, I'm also a big guy. So it was easy to knock down the younger kids, the smaller kids. But yeah, I actually broke a kid's collarbone on a hill playing that once. We were tussling at the top. I pushed him, and the way he landed and rolled, he broke his collarbone. He held that against me for a really long time. I wonder if he still does now. I don't even know where he is now. I'm yet to see Ravens be good, but I may only be tuning in at the wrong time. Yeah, see, I get a lot of Ravens football here where I live, Johnny, because, like I said, I'm a Philly guy. I live in a Philadelphia suburb, but where I'm at, I'm so close to the Maryland border, I'm actually driving distance, like time-wise, equally away from Baltimore as I am Philly. Mileage-wise, a little bit further away from Baltimore, but there's a lot of Baltimore fans in my area. So when there's not an Eagles game on, the Ravens are almost always one of the teams that are on the TV in this area. So I do tend to watch Ravens football. Plus, the AFC North, Ravens, Browns, Bengals, Steelers, it's good, hard-nosed, tough football. So when they're playing, it's easy to tune into. So the Ravens are good. They've got a Lamar Jackson question. Is he worth more money than Jalen Hurts? He won an MVP one year, but he's done jack since. So I don't know. That would be a great show challenge. Just get guests. So every guest I have on, I got to find a way to get them to say mid. And I can't say the word mid. I can use the word mid in a sentence. Man, Drew, that's a stretch. They could be the best in their division. I don't know. Who was a bigger impact this year? Davis, Dean, Carter, or Nolan? I think Dean. Well, the first thing is that it came out yesterday, first day of OTAs, that Nakobe Dean had the green dot on his helmet. So the green dot's the leader of the defense. I'm super high on Nakobe Dean. That's why I think Budda Baker, Marshawn, is a more important target than some of the linebackers like Devin White and others that are out there that could be brought in. Like, I would like another linebacker brought in here, but Nakobe Dean, I think, is going to be the leader on defense, and I'm really happy with that. Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter. People are sleeping on Jordan Davis because of Carter, because of Nolan Smith, and because of the draft. I'm hoping Jordan Davis could play 50, 52% of the snaps every game. And if he does, he is going to be so dominant. I just think Jordan Davis can move mountains. And I know they don't play the same position, so they don't go up against each other in practice. I still need video footage. I'm going to call out Chris Franklin and Ed Kratz, my guys that I have come on here, beat reporters from the Eagles. I've been asking them for a year now to get the two of them, head-to-head in a one-on-one blocking drill scheme just to see two mountains collide. Jordan Mailata, Jordan Davis. I just want to see it. And they still have not asked for me, and we haven't gotten that footage. Very down on the 49ers. Why? I mean, the quarterback situation is obviously in flux. Reports are Trey Lance is the number one guy right now in camp, in the OTAs in the offseason. They still got a great defense. They still got Deebo Samuel. And they have a great culture. Shanahan, Lynch, they've built a culture. Like that there is a system where you could plug and play quarterbacks and still be successful as long as you have a quarterback. Opinion on Reed Blankenship. I like Reed Blankenship. I would like Reed Blankenship more if Budda Baker was next to him. Reed Blankenship right now is your most experienced safety I guess Terrell Edmonds is more experienced, I guess, hypothetically. But out of your starters or the guys that are going to see significant minutes, Reed Blankenship's your top guy. And I don't think he's good enough yet to be the top guy. So I need somebody opposite of him, a more veteran guy. And I don't want to go into the season with Edmonds as a starter. I want Blankenship and Baker, Blankenship and somebody else to be there. I think he's got potential. He's got that leadership potential as a safety. He's got the fiery personality, makes big, bold hits. I think he could develop into a top-tier guy. Him and, what's the guy, Sidney Brown that we drafted, could be the safeties of the future. But right now they need somebody else to help get them to that level. There's still too many, there were some mistakes that Reed Blankenship made last year at times. So I want to see more. I think he could be more, but I think he needs somebody else next to him to unlock the full potential there. So there's not as much pressure. Dolphins are figured out, no longer a threat unless they catch you sleeping. Eagles, Tyson, Dolphins, Glass Joe. Oh, we'll find out about it. It's too early to even know about some of these teams. That's another nice name for a T-shirt. Tussling at the top. I like it. I will give Ravens this. Browns and Steelers have been bad. Have the Steelers been bad? They haven't had a sub 500 record in, 300 years? So even though they're not great, they still, they're still good. The Browns, Deshaun Watson, that whole Browns-Watson relationship is going to blow up, and I can't wait. I just can't wait till it happens. Seahawks have two good dynamic running backs. You got a dynamic wide receiver 3, 2 good tight ends, and believe Geno is legit. Bobby Wagner's back. They got another legit cornerback. Hey, I mean, you might be right. There's only one thing you said there. I believe Geno is legit. It's the only question mark. Can Geno do it 2 years in a row, Drew? That's the question. If he can, Seahawks win. If Geno can even just match last season's production, maybe they even win their division. That's how good they could be because of what's around him. It's just Geno Smith's been in the league for 10 years and he's had one good year. It's not like Jalen Hurts in his second full year as a starter took the team to the Super Bowl and he's still growing and learning. And Geno's been there, done that, and he's never done it before. So that's where my concern comes. Was last year an aberration for Geno, or did he figure something out? Did Pete Carroll unlock something? I don't know. Get everybody to say mid. I know. Dino got the mic. Yeah, Dean is Nakobe Dean is the Mike linebacker now. I think Milton Williams oh my God, Drew. You're right up my alley with Milton Williams. I shared my man Mike Greger, who writes for Philadelphia Sports Network, just did a whole article detailing why Milton Williams is going to be so good. And man, I'm a huge Milton Williams fan. He didn't play a lot last year, but when he did play, do you realize that he had what was the stat in the article? How does it said? Based off of the percentage of snaps played, how many disruptive run plays you had as a defensive lineman. And guess what? Based off of percentage of snaps, because obviously some guys play more snaps than others, based off of the amount of snaps played percentage-wise, Milton Williams was the fourth best run stopper in the NFL. Fourth best. He only played like 30% of the snaps that were available, but in those 30% of snaps, he was the fourth best defensive lineman there was against the run. I'm super high on Milton Williams. I think he can, if he gets 50% of the snaps this year, he's going to have 8 sacks, and he's going to be one of the best run stoppers in the league. It's just, can he crack the Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Fletcher Cox rotation enough to get 50% of snaps? But if he does, Drew, man, let me tell you something. Milton Williams, people are sleeping on him. He's going to be big this year. Our defense is looking like a baby gangrene low-key. Yeah, and I think if you listen to Coach Dale Carlson a lot, you don't got to be blitz happy to sack the quarterback. I think the Eagles proved last year as a low blitz team. They got 70 sacks last year. This day and age, you don't need to blitz. You just need to have 4 or 5 guys that can get after the quarterback, have high motors, and our defense has got that. So I think that's really important. It's a nice story, but no elite quarterback, you're not going past round 2 in the playoffs. Blankenship should kick in the NFL. Let's see here. That's fair. We need a safety upgrade, but I want to see that kid play. Yeah, I mean, I want to see him play too, and I think he is going to get that opportunity to play. It's just a matter of, taking a little bit of the pressure off of him. Like right now, if it's Edmonds and Blankenship starting, there's a lot of pressure on Blankenship to maybe reach a little bit, and maybe not. Maybe it's not the time. What about Greedy? Greedy Williams is a depth guy. Greedy Williams, we talk about guys that we've brought in that are injured. Greedy Williams is injured just as much as anybody else. He's a guy that's been brought here to fill in as a back. Avonte Maddox is always injured. Darius Slay misses plays because he gets banged up throughout the game. Greedy Williams is the guy that's going to be the first cornerback off the bench when somebody needs a break. I appreciate it, Eagles Uncensored. I appreciate you enjoying the show today. Make sure everybody's liking the show. It's still got only 9 likes on the show today. Give me Steelers 17 times. I love watching the Steelers play football. Mike Tomlin's a great coach, man. Only hasn't had a Super Bowl in a while, but, it is what it is. Will shock the 49ers in the playoffs. They could shock them in the division and win the division. On Geno take. Alex Smith was watching. Fair point. I'm a huge Alex Smith guy. I love Alex Smith because I had a similar leg break as he did. I didn't have an NFL team helping repair my leg. It's why I don't play sports outside of golf anymore. But I had the exact same leg break that Alex Smith did. So I know. And when he came back, even though it wasn't great and it was a very short period of time, when he stepped back on the football field, it meant so much to me to see him be able to overcome that injury. And seeing the videos of him rehabbing, I'm like, I wish I had, $1 billion football team backing me up. I might be able to do some more right now with my leg. But I still 20 plus years later struggle to walk down the street or walk from here to walk my dogs, So I love Alex Smith. So I get the comparison though, because before his leg break, he was floundering around, for a while early in his career until Andy Reid, was able to unlock something and he turned into something pretty decent there. I watched film on Milton Williams. He has the skills for sure. Drew, go to Philadelphia Sports Network's website, PhiladelphiaSN.com. I don't even know the website of the company I work for here. Philadelphia Sports Network's website. There was an article yesterday. I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago. Posted and had a lot of stats and footage of Milton Williams. And man, I was already high on Milton Williams, and to see one of the writers for the website dive deep into Milton Williams just made me feel good inside because it was more reaffirming of what he is capable of doing. So I love it. Wasn't Blankenship a field goal kicker with, I don't know what you're trying to make jokes. I appreciate you though, Johnny. I really do. But anyway, this has been fun today. Remember, the climb to the top is easier than staying on top. I love it. This has been great. Make sure we're liking this video and following. Now I got to figure out how, last week's Football Friday was a great episode. This week's was even better. Now I don't know what we're going to talk about. Do I find another guest? Got another coach I can bring on here. Another offensive-minded guy, a guy that knows Jalen Hurts' style because he's from Texas. Do I go out and find another guy? I don't know. I got to figure out what I'm going to do next week for football talk. It's still too early for me to make predictions. I don't know. I'm serious about a field goal kicker. I have no idea. I don't know. I have been to the site before. We'll check it out. Always down for Eagles content. Mike Greger wrote it. He's normally a basketball writer for the site, but he dove real deep. He's really trying to step up his game there on PSN. So he did a great job on that article. Check it out. It's really, really, really great site, or really great article there. I really enjoyed it. I missed yesterday's stream, but I love the Kawhi trade. Oh, you do. All right. Yeah, I don't know how we do it, but yeah, we'll get back to basketball. We'll get into Monday. We'll get into the Nick Nurse press conference. However, the Phillies, I posted a question on my Twitter page right before the show started. 3 games against the Nationals. Will the Phillies, they're 1 game up on the Nationals for last place right now. So we'll talk about that on Monday as well. We'll continue talking Nick Nurse and the Sixers as well, NBA Finals, stuff like that. Any guest who knows Eagles roster real good that could take the heat of Phil chat. Yeah, exactly. The thing with Dale Carlson, he's a great guy, and he's got an immense. I mean, he basically studied under Tommy Tuberville. I always mess up his name. He's been coaching for 40 years, but he doesn't know the Eagles specifically. I gave him the size name and Brian Johnson's name, so he had some preparation for that part of the show. But he doesn't know the Eagles specifically ins and outs. But he is a great football mind, but he doesn't know the Eagles. So I will find somebody that knows the Eagles ins and outs more detailed for sure. Maybe I'll find a Buffalo Bills beat reporter at some point, Johnny, and bring him on here too on a Football Friday. Do you get him started on that Kawhi? Yeah, dude, the Kawhi stuff, man. I love it because everybody hates when I have one idea. So I'm like, all right, you don't like that idea? Let me come up with another idea. And they hate that idea. I'm like, well, you didn't like this one. Let me come up with this one. You don't like that one. Let me come up with this one. You don't like that one. I can only come up with so many ideas. Yeah, I mean, I hope he came through okay. He's a great guy. Sometimes his internet lags a little bit, but it was a really great, great interview again. You ever heard of medical tourism? Something I'm looking into. I have no idea what that means. Never heard of it, but I'll look into it. I'm always open for looking into whatever you guys say. But we're going to wrap it up right there. It's Friday. That means I got to get to the pizza shop. If anybody's anywhere near the Kennett Square area, I'm there all weekend. Fox's Pizza Den, Kennett Square. Come see me. Come have a slice of pizza. And, we'll talk sports. We'll talk football. But for today, we are going to wrap it up again. Special shout out to Coach Dale Carlson. Thank you very much. At Dale Carlson 63 on Twitter. A-Town down. Isn't that what he does? He goes like this or like this. I don't know. I don't know what the hand signal is that he does. When he poses with his U.S. championship. Anyway, wrapping it up for Philadelphia Sports Network. I'm Phil Stiefel. Make sure you're liking this video. Make sure you're shouting it out, sharing it out, telling everybody to tune in every day at 8:30 for the #1 sports morning show, the best, the first daily sports show in Philly on YouTube. Shout it from the rooftops. The more people that watch, the more people that like, the more people that tune in, the more I can do this, the longer the shows can go. I get to have 2 days off from doing content now. So everybody have a great weekend. We'll be back next week. Stay cool. It's going to be hot this weekend, especially in the Philly area. It's going to be like 90 today. The Pizza Shop Kitchen is going to be hot today. But for everybody, I'm Phil Stiefel. Y'all have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week, guys.